Welcome back to the deep dive, everyone. I am thrilled to be here with you today to unpack something really wild.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, today's topic is, it's pretty mind-bending, to say the least.
It really is. So, to start us off, imagine you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. I mean, it's the ultimate classic problem, right? The go-to metaphor for any kind of difficult search.
Oh, definitely. Everyone knows that feeling.
Right, but for our purposes today, I want you to imagine that the haystack isn't just sitting there. It is actively expanding at the speed of light.
Which sounds completely terrifying on its own.
It does. And to make matters infinitely worse, someone is sneaking around the edges, and they are actively replacing the real hay with millions of identical poisoned needles.
Wow.
Okay, so the question becomes, how do you find the actual truth without completely losing your mind?
Well, that sounds like an utterly impossible scenario. And yet, if you strip away the metaphor, that is the exact daily reality facing modern intelligence analysts.
Which is just crazy to think about.
It is. They're operating in an environment where the data isn't just overwhelming, it is actively weaponized against them.
It's completely paralyzing to even think about. And that scenario is at the very heart of what we are looking at today. We are taking a deep dive into Wilbert Bean III's highly influential 2026 paper, The Adversarial Dialectic.
A fantastic piece of research, honestly.
It really is. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore what the literature calls the complexity crisis. This crisis is currently paralyzing the United States intelligence community.
Right, and we're going to uncover the radical, almost purely philosophical way they're trying to fix it.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. To understand why the intelligence community is in such a profound state of panic right now, we can't just look at the technology.
No, we have to look backward.
Yeah, we have to look at the architecture they built for themselves decades ago.
That's the perfect starting point, really, because you can't understand the current failure without understanding the original design. As you and many of our listeners probably already know, the U.S. intelligence community was formalized under the National Security Act of 1947.
Way back at the start of the Cold War.
Exactly. Think about the strategic environment of the early Cold War. The entire global intelligence apparatus was optimized for one very specific defining condition, which was data scarcity.
Right, because just finding a single piece of useful information was physically difficult. I mean, it was highly dangerous and incredibly expensive.
Oh, absolutely.
You were trying to find like one elusive Soviet radar signal or intercept a single courier. You were genuinely looking for that one needle in a very, very small haystack.
And because the data was so incredibly scarce, they built an analytical pipeline to treat every piece of information like gold.
Makes sense. What was that pipeline called?
It's known as the TPED cycle. That stands for tasking, processing, exploitation, and dissemination.
Tasking, processing, exploitation, dissemination. Okay.
Right. It was designed as a very linear, highly controlled collection management model. The idea was to carefully and meticulously funnel this rare data through compartmentalized vertical silos.
So that specialized experts could examine every single angle of it without any distractions.
Exactly.
But today, that environment hasn't just changed, right? It has completely inverted.
Yes, completely. We are no longer living in an era of data scarcity.
Not at all. With the explosion of open source intelligence, or OSINT, we are drowning in absolute data abundance. I mean, every tweet, every open server, every satellite image, every digital transaction, it's all intelligence now.
And that sheer abundance utterly breaks the legacy system.
Wow.
The TPE cycle, which used to be this perfectly structured analytical pipeline, has transformed into a severe cognitive bottleneck.
Because there's just too much stuff to funnel through those narrow silos.
Precisely. The intelligence community simply cannot curate this volume of data using a system designed for scarcity. Because of this architectural failure, they've lost something the literature refers to as temporal parity.
Okay, temporal parity. Let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around that term.
Sure.
Temporal parity essentially means the ability to ingest, process, and analyze intelligence at the exact same velocity that an adversary is generating it, correct?
You've got it. It's the speed of the game.
Okay.
And when you lose temporal parity, you create what researchers Gentry and Gordon identified back in 2019 as the warning response gap.
The warning response gap. That sounds bad.
It is the nightmare scenario for any analyst.
Yeah.
It means you are technically collecting vast amounts of data, and the answers are somewhere on your servers.
But you can't find them in time.
Right. You simply cannot convert that raw data into actionable strategic warning fast enough. By the time you process the threat, The event has already happened.
So policymakers have zero lead time to actually do anything about it.
Exactly. In the intelligence world, this delay is measured in time to detection, or TTD.
To put this in perspective for you listening, imagine you have a team of elite, world-class sommeliers.
Oh, I like this analogy.
Yeah, think about it. During the Cold War, the intelligence community was handing these experts rare single glasses of wine to taste, swirl, and analyze.
Very civilized.
Right. But today, in this modern OSINT environment, you aren't handing them a glass of wine. You are blasting them in the face with a high-pressure fire hose of raw grape juice and demanding they immediately identify subtle notes of oak.
It's a physical impossibility. The human brain just shuts down.
It completely shuts down.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this paralysis doesn't just slow things down. It leads to a fascinating and dangerous shift in how these massive organizations behave.
What kind of shift?
Well, a researcher named Johnson characterized this back in 2006 as the swarm ball phenomenon.
The swarm ball. I have to admit, I love this term. It instantly makes me think of a youth soccer game played by a bunch of 5-year-olds.
It's a brilliant comparison because the mechanics of the failure are exactly the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just like 5-year-olds, all chasing the ball in a giant clump instead of playing their actual positions, intelligence agencies become so overwhelmed by the sheer volume of data that they abandon their specialized roles.
So instead of doing efficient, quiet analysis, they all just swarm toward the exact same flashy, high-visibility data streams.
Right. And why do they do that? Because they need to look busy.
Office politics.
Exactly. They prioritize justifying their massive budgets to Congress and making their collection efforts highly visible rather than actually playing defense.
So they are so busy just trying to get a foot on the ball that they leave the entire goal wide open.
Yes. And when agencies suffer from these kinds of cognitive bottlenecks, strategic surprise isn't just possible. It is an absolute inevitability.
Because the adversary makes a move, and we are still drafting the preliminary reports on the noise they made yesterday. So, if human brains are the bottleneck, if our sommeliers are drowning in the fire hose and our soccer players are just swarming the ball, the obvious solution, the thing I think anyone listening would immediately suggest, is to just replace the humans with really fast machines.
Naturally.
Right. I mean, if processing speed is the root of the problem, why not just automate the entire front end of the intelligence cycle?
That is exactly what the technical subtext of the literature initially proposed. For years, scholars and engineers pointed to automated machine learning, or ML, frameworks as the silver bullet.
Okay, so they did try to build a giant vacuum cleaner.
They did. A prime example discussed in Bean's paper is the in-time framework, which stands for Integrated Threat Intelligence Mining and Extraction.
Let me look at this. So I'm looking at this in-time framework, and it seems like the goal here is to just rip the human analyst out of the loop almost entirely to save time.
That was the dream, yeah.
But how does a machine actually know what a threat looks like without a human sitting there pointing it out? What does a system like this actually do under the hood?
Well, it's designed as an end-to-end management platform to autonomously ingest cyber threat intelligence from all over the web. To do this without humans, it relies heavily on two specific technologies.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, it uses support vector machine classifiers, or SVMs. This prioritizes relevant data right at the point of ingestion.
SVMs. How should we visualize that?
Think of an SVM as a highly complex mathematical boundary line drawn across a massive graph. It plots millions of data points and mathematically separates the likely safe from the likely dangerous at lightning speed.
Got it. Fast math. What's the second technology?
Second, it uses natural language understanding, or NLU. And this isn't just basic word matching. The NLU tries to autonomously extract semantic context.
Meaning it tries to actually understand what it's reading.
Exactly. It reads the threat reports, pulls out malware signatures, identifies dangerous shell commands, and pieces together the context of the threat. In theory, it bypasses that human triage bottleneck entirely.
Okay, wait. I have to push back on this logic.
Go for it.
If we just build a massive, incredibly fast, automated vacuum cleaner to suck up open source data, but we remove the human beings who actually verify what's on the floor, aren't we just opening our mouths and swallowing whatever the adversary feeds us?
That is a very astute observation.
I mean, if I'm a hostile nation state and I know your automated vacuum is sucking up everything on the internet to train its threat models, I'm just going to leave a trail of poisoned breadcrumbs for it to find.
You've just identified the exact fatal flaw of raw automation.
Really?
Yes. And this is where the research of lie from 2023 becomes absolutely critical to understanding the complexity crisis. Lie's work focuses heavily on a concept called backdoor data poisoning.
Backdoor data poisoning. That
Oops,
sounds
what?
incredibly sinister.
It is. You see, modern adversaries are highly sophisticated. They are fully aware that we are attempting to automate our defenses to keep up with their volume.
So they play into it.
Exactly. They don't just generate noise anymore. They intentionally algorithmicize their disinformation.
So they are literally poisoning the well, knowing our machines are the ones drinking from it.
Precisely. They hide invisible, sample-specific triggers inside seemingly benign open-source data.
Wow.
So when defense systems like InTime champion this high-volume automated ingestion, they are unknowingly creating a massive, completely unvetted attack surface.
Because the machine is just eating everything as fast as possible.
Right. As these machine learning models go through their continuous learning cycles to stay updated, they ingest these poisoned data sets.
Meaning we are essentially letting the adversary train our defense model.
Unfortunately, yes.
We are just handing them the keys and letting them dictate what our computers think a baseline reality looks like.
Yes. And it forces a profound quality versus quantity trade-off that the intelligence community just wasn't prepared for.
Because you can't have both.
Right. As the models ingest massive quantities of data to improve their detection speed, the overall quality and accuracy of the model inherently degrades because it is absorbing adversarial noise.
This is why raw technical velocity is actually a trap.
Exactly. Without domain-specific epistemological boundaries, which is really just a fancy academic way of saying your computer needs a rigid philosophical definition of what the truth is actually supposed to look like, making it read lies faster doesn't help you.
It just makes you wrong faster.
Yes, it is a profound strategic liability.
Mm-hmm.
You end up sacrificing sovereign truth simply to increase your processing volume.
Okay, let me pause here, because we are stuck in a massive, terrifying paradox.
We really are.
To survive the complexity crisis, we absolutely must automate our systems to keep up with the sheer volume of the data fire hose. But we can't trust the volume we are automating because the adversary is actively poisoning the water supply.
Right, it's a catch-22.
So how on earth do you filter millions of data points securely without slowing the machine back down to a crawl and reintroducing the human bottleneck?
That is the million-dollar question.
Well, here's where Bean's 2026 paper gets really interesting. The solution he outlines isn't a new computer chip or a faster algorithm. It's a fundamental change in the philosophical rules of reality testing.
What's fascinating here is that this structural fix requires a complete paradigm shift, moving into what the literature calls the philosophical metatext.
The philosophical metatext.
Yeah. To fix the machines, the intelligence community had to abandon traditional verification entirely and embrace Karl Popper's theory of deductive falsification.
Let's break that down for the listener, because deductive falsification sounds incredibly heavy, but the underlying logic is actually brilliant.
It is brilliant.
Traditional verification is basically what we all do every day, right? Just trying to accumulate evidence to prove that something is true.
Right. If you want to prove the statement, all swans are white, using traditional verification, you have to go out and count millions and millions of white swans.
Which takes forever.
Exactly. In a modern open-source intelligence environment, adversaries are intentionally manufacturing synthetic consensus. They are flooding the internet with fake news, fake network telemetry, completely fabricated threat reports.
Just massive amounts of white swans.
Yes. If your machine learning model is trying to algorithmically prove that 10,000 incoming data points are true, the mathematics heavily favor the adversary. It takes an astronomical amount of computational power to verify a massive, well-constructed lie.
Which is where Karl Popper's falsification flips the entire script.
It does.
Instead of exhausting your computer trying to prove that all swans are white by counting millions of them, you just scan the horizon for exactly one black swan.
Exactly. The intelligence system adopts a radically pessimistic baseline. It assumes that absolutely everything it ingests is a lie.
Guilty until proven innocent.
Right. It operates on computational mismatch logic, a concept that was successfully operationalized by researchers Hansen and Walker in 2021.
And they don't just apply this as a loose guideline, do they?
No, this logic is programmed directly into the machine learning pipeline using something called SecMLOps, or security machine learning operations.
So by baking this directly into the code, the system isn't passively reading data. It actively hunts for the contradiction.
Yes, and the math behind this approach is beautiful in its simplicity. Think about the burden you are placing on the adversary.
Okay, I'm thinking.
To deceive an automated defense system, The adversary has to generate massive volumes of synthetic data to trigger the algorithm in the first place.
Right, they have to paint a really big, convincing picture.
But the larger and more complex the fake dataset they create, the higher the mathematical probability becomes that they will accidentally include a logical contradiction.
Because keeping a massive, multi-layered lie perfectly consistent across thousands of data points is incredibly hard, even for a state-sponsored hacking group.
It's nearly impossible. And the beauty of the Popperian shield is that the defense system isn't trying to untangle or verify the whole lie. It is strictly hunting for the one mistake.
The black swan.
Exactly. The moment the system finds a single mismatch, the entire synthetic illusion shatters and the data is dropped.
Bean's paper perfectly illustrated this with the deployment of the signal refutation engine, or the SRE.
Yes, the SRE is a perfect example.
They used it to handle a very specific, real-world threat. It was CVE 2025-68613, which was an N8N remote code execution vulnerability. Walk us through how mismatched logic handled that, because it really clarifies the theory.
Sure. So in a traditional legacy system, a defense algorithm just scans incoming data looking for a known bad signature.
Like a bouncer at a club looking for a specific face on a banned list.
Great analogy. And if the adversary alters the signature slightly, they just walk right in.
Because the bouncer doesn't recognize them.
Exactly. But the SRE doesn't care about signatures. It looks for behavioral mismatches against a rigid baseline of what normal must look like.
Okay, so how does it define normal?
Well, for example, the system knows exactly how a benign baseline parent process on a server should operate. Let's use node.exe as our example.
Right, that's the established reality. Node.exe has a very specific, boring job to do.
Precisely. Now, if the automated system is monitoring the network and suddenly sees node.exe spawn a new command line process out of nowhere specifically, cmd.exe, that is a glaring logical contradiction.
Because under normal circumstances, node.exe simply does not do that.
Right. It's the black swan. The established baseline of normal behavior is immediately falsified.
Wow.
The SRE doesn't need to waste time analyzing the 10,000 fake data points the adversary generated to camouflage the attack. It just sees the behavioral mismatch, instantly drops the threat, and triggers an alert.
It completely neutralizes the backdoor data poisoning by simply refusing to play the adversary's verification game.
Exactly.
That is incredible. It literally turns the adversary's massive volume against them. So we fix the machines and we fix the philosophical logic they use to process the data safely.
We have, but the paper points out a final massive hurdle.
Right, because perfectly processed, mathematically sound intelligence generated by AI is totally useless if it hits a bureaucratic brick wall before anyone can read it.
And this brings us out of the realm of technology and into the organizational context.
Yeah.
As researcher Loneman pointed out back in 2010, the legacy models inherited from the Cold War rely on incredibly strict vertical chains of command.
Those vertical silos again.
Exactly. They operate on a rigid need-to-know clearance model.
Think about your own workplace for a second, you listening. How many times has an amazing idea, a crucial project update, or a critical piece of data just died in an email thread because another department didn't have the clearance, the budget, or the incentive to look at it?
It happens all the time.
Now imagine that exact same office politics happening with national security data that dictates life and death.
This raises an incredibly important question for the intelligence community. What good is possessing 21st century, falsification-tested artificial intelligence if it is permanently trapped inside a 1947 bureaucracy?
It's useless.
Exactly. The need-to-know model creates inherent structural latency, and modern cyber threats simply do not respect human departmental boundaries.
No, they don't.
A cyber threat detected in a domestic digital network might need to be instantly cross-referenced with physical, real-world telemetry gathered overseas to be fully understood.
The fire burning down the building doesn't care which department legally owns the floor it started on.
Exactly. So to actually close that warning response gap we talked about earlier, the intelligence community has to undergo a massive cultural shift toward decentralized, trusted networks.
And that means abandoning the old need-to-know ethos entirely.
It does. They must replace it with a modern responsibility to provide ethos.
Responsibility to provide. I like that.
Yeah. This means an analyst sitting at the tactical edge of one agency can instantly query horizontally across completely different domains without waiting weeks for interagency permission.
But how do they actually do that technically? Because the paper mentions specific tools that make this cultural shift possible, like MISP, which standardizes data into SDIX and TAX2 formats.
Right, the formatting standards are the unsung heroes here. Think of SEIX and TAC like a universal translator for computers.
Okay, a universal translator.
Historically, Title 10 covers the military and defense, while Title 50 covers covert foreign intelligence. You can't just email a classified threat signature from an Army server to a CIA database.
Why not?
Because they operate under different legal authorities and entirely different digital architectures. It was like one agency speaking French and the other speaking Japanese.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It was. But what MISP does is force all these disparate systems to speak the exact same digital language. It allows for rapid, automated cyber threat intelligence sharing across massive bureaucratic divides.
Which ensures that the high-velocity falsification-tested data actually reaches the policymakers in time to make a strategic difference.
Exactly. It finally closes that warning response gap.
So, what does this all mean for us? When we step back and look at the entire picture Bean paints in the adversarial dialectic, it's about a massive, painful paradigm shift.
It really is.
It means waking up from the data scarcity of the Cold War and facing the digital abundance of today. It means finally upgrading that old vertical TPED funnel into the automated in-time framework so we can actually handle the fire hose of open source data. But crucially, it means swapping out slow, vulnerable verification for Popperian falsification so we don't accidentally swallow poison data. And finally, it means tearing down the bureaucratic walls, abandoning need to know for a responsibility to provide, and using universal translators like SDIX and TAX2 so the data can actually move.
It is the complete architectural and philosophical overhaul of how a nation processes reality.
It's massive.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, outside of just the intelligence community, it leaves us with a rather chilling implication to ponder as we move forward.
Oh, I like where this is going. Lay it on me.
Think about the core logic here. The most advanced, well-funded intelligence systems on Earth are currently adopting purely deductive falsification, simply to survive the modern internet.
Right.
They are operating on the absolute assumption that massive data sets are entirely deceptive until a single logical contradiction shatters the lie. It is a fundamental system of guilty until proven innocent, applied to raw information.
Wow. When you phrase it like that, it's pretty dark.
So the ultimate question is, how long until this logic inevitably bleeds into our everyday lives?
Oh, man.
Right. When consumer AI, the algorithms that curate our daily news feeds, run our smart homes, and filter our emails, are forced to adopt these exact same Popperian shields to deal with open source noise. What happens to society?
That is terrifying.
Will we eventually rely on machines to falsify our daily news, our historical records? In a world of deepfakes and poisoned data, will we eventually need automated mismatch logic just to verify that our own human interactions online are real?
That is an incredibly wild thought to end on. We started this deep dive by talking about the impossible task of finding a needle in a rapidly expanding haystack full of poison needles.
And we ended up questioning reality itself.
Yeah, exactly. And the intelligence community's ultimate answer isn't to build a better magnet to find the real needle. Their answer is to build a machine that assumes every single piece of hay is a deadly trap until it mathematically proves itself false.
It really makes you wonder how long until we all have to start looking at the digital world exactly the same way.
It really does. Well, thank you so much for joining us as we unpacked all of this. Keep questioning the information around you, and we'll catch you next time.